Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. So today we're taking a look at an absolute classic, the story of a lion, a mouse, and a very sleepy bear. But we're not just reading a simple fairy tale here. We're going to break down the actual ecosystem dynamics, the reality of power structures, and how some pretty unexpected teamwork can completely restore balance to an environment. I'm literally so excited to get into this with you, so grab your notebooks and let's just jump right in. Can the smallest creatures solve the biggest problem? In any structured system, whether that's a massive corporate ladder or a literal forest ecosystem, we're totally conditioned to think that size and status equal value and capability, right? Well, throughout this explainer, we're going to unpack some evidence that absolutely shatters that assumption. We'll prove exactly why you should honestly never underestimate the bottom of the food chain. All right, Act 1, a very noisy winter. Every good case study starts with an inciting incident, and our forest is certainly no different. So on one side of this ecosystem, we've got our protagonist, a tiny, completely sleep-deprived mouse. And on the other side, a massive, oblivious problem. Literally a huge bear in the cave next door, hibernating but snoring so loudly it's insane. It's your classic David and Goliath setup. Our tiny, suffering mouse is dealing with this immense obstacle that's keeping him awake all winter long. The scale of the problem here just totally, vastly outweighs the scale of the victim. So what does the mouse do? Well, he starts with basic logic. Step 1, direct polite communication. He walks up to the bear and says, "Hey, summer's here. You can wake up anytime now." And when that completely fails, he escalates to step 2. He grabs a bugle and blows it vigorously right at the bear. I absolutely love this because it perfectly highlights the utter failure of conventional problem solving when you're just vastly outmatched in size. The bear literally sleeps right through the bugle. Okay, so the direct approach is a bust. The little mouse is wandering around sleeplessly, and he decides to consult his network, the other forest animals. And they suggest a pretty drastic escalation. They tell him he needs to seek out the apex predator of the forest, the lion. Why? Because the lion has a roar so loud it makes everyone jump the instant they hear it. Basically, the mouse is being advised to bring in the ultimate heavy artillery for his neighbor dispute. Moving on to Act 2, the arrogant forest king. Our mouse now has to approach the absolute top of the food chain. The stakes here couldn't possibly be higher. The little mouse creeps up to the lion's cave, absolutely terrified. He actually decides to give up and turn back, but in doing so, snap, he accidentally steps on a branch and the big cat wakes up. Honestly, it's such a critical lesson in unintended consequences. The mouse did not mean to initiate contact this way, but bam, he's just woken up this terrifying beast and now he has no choice but to plead his case with his tiny, trembling voice. And how does the apex predator handle this? He looks down and goes, "You're not even big enough to be considered snack size. Little mouse, why should I help you?" The mouse tries to explain he just needs one powerful roar to wake up his neighbor, but the lion totally shoots him down, says he doesn't have time for a tiny little useless mouse. It brilliantly illustrates the ultimate arrogance of power. The lion assesses the mouse's value entirely on its physical size, completely missing the interconnected nature of the ecosystem. But wait, here's where the story takes an incredibly ironic turn. The lion stalks off, head held high, flat out refusing to help. But the second he thinks nobody is looking, he ducks behind a tree and begins to itch like crazy. Seriously, the supposedly untouchable king of the forest is suddenly reduced to hiding in a corner, frantically scratching his fur, terrified that someone might see him looking so completely silly and vulnerable. Turns out, his pride is as fragile as his ego. Which brings us to Act 3, the Great Flea Fiasco. This is where the rigid power structure of the forest gets flipped entirely upside down. So our sad, exhausted little mouse is trudging home, right, when suddenly he hears this strange wheezing sound from deep in the forest. He follows it, and what does he spot? The mighty lion, scratching non-stop. The mouse has literally just stumbled upon the apex predator in a moment of sheer vulnerability and extreme discomfort. Talk about the playing field instantly leveling out. The instant the lion sees the mouse, he freezes. He tries to put that tough facade right back up, even though he's clearly in agony. He snarls, "You haven't seen or heard anything, mouse. Are we clear?" It's so telling. Even in literal pain, the lion's first instinct is to protect his status and project strength. It is a textbook defense mechanism. But those tiny mouse eyes spot something the lion just can't manage on his own. A bunch of tiny fleas jumping around in his thick fur. I mean, really think about the gravity of that for a second. The biggest, most fearsome creature out there, a beast who literally just called the mouse useless, has been brought completely to his knees by something exponentially smaller than the mouse itself. It is an incredible demonstration of how micro forces can totally dismantle macro structures. So, how does the mouse react? He could have easily just laughed and walked away. But instead, he bravely jumps right onto the lion to help, completely ignoring the lion, yelling to get off. You see, the mouse lacks that damaging ego the lion has. He's entirely focused on solving the problem. It shows immense courage and this incredible instinct for collaboration, even when he's met with straight-up hostility. But let me tell you, this rescue mission is absolute chaos. The mouse crawls into the fur, the lion panics and rubs wildly against a tree, almost crushing the mouse. Then he sprints and cannonballs into a nearby lake, nearly drowning his tiny savior. Finally, he scrambles out and shakes himself violently dry, forcing the mouse to just hang on for dear life. The tiny guy puts himself through extreme physical danger to fix the very king who insulted him. And against all odds, success! The lion finally stops thrashing around and the mouse tosses out the last few remaining fleas. The itch is officially gone. You can see the immediate relief for the lion. Think about it. The tiny, supposedly useless mouse has just achieved exactly what the mighty king of the forest was entirely incapable of doing himself. All right, Act 4, a roaring resolution. This is where humility paves the way for teamwork, and we loop right back to our initial environmental disturbance. At this point, the lion is deeply embarrassed. He actually apologizes. He says, "Look, I looked down on you, mouse, but you still did everything in your power to save me." This is a massive psychological shift here. The lion finally gets it. He realizes his critical mistake in judging someone's worth and capability purely by their physical size. He's learned the true value of every single member of the ecosystem. What we get from this is a beautiful symbiosis. The lion tells the mouse to hop on his back, giving his tiny savior a VIP ride home. We now have the ultimate teamwork, the absolute top of the food chain operating in perfect tandem with the very bottom. It's just a fantastic, powerful image of mutual respect and cooperation. So, as our newly formed dream team arrives back at the mouse's home, they are instantly greeted by a very familiar sound. Those deafening snores are still just flooding out of the big bear's cave. We are right back at the initial problem. But this time, the mouse isn't facing it alone with a little bugle. He brought the heavy artillery. The lion, the actual king of the forest, takes a deep breath right in the ears of the big bear and unleashes a roar so incredibly powerful that the very stone floor of the cave shakes. The lion is finally taking all that immense macro-level power and using it constructively. He is deploying it to solve the micro-level problem of his tiny new friend. And the result? It's instantaneous and honestly pretty hilarious. The bear shoots right up. What happened? Is there something wrong? Did the sun come out? Is it summer? That immense force of the roar startles the bear right out of his deep hibernation. The months of noisy torment that plagued our little protagonist are finally over. The big problem is completely neutralized. So the resolution is complete. The other animals in the forest are having a good laugh at the confused bear. And most importantly, our little mouse is thrilled because he can finally get some sleep. The entire ecosystem is back in a state of harmonious balance. And the wild part? It was all orchestrated not by the king of the forest, but by the absolute smallest creature within it. It just proves that size does not dictate your ability to enact massive change. So, I want to leave you with a thought today. The next time you face a giant problem, whose roar will you need? And who will you have to help to get it? This explainer really reminds us of the absolute power of reciprocity. Never, ever underestimate anyone based on their rank, their status, or their size. Because honestly, you never know when you'll be the one hiding behind a tree with an itch you just can't scratch. Thanks so much for learning with me today. Keep exploring, and I'll catch you on the next one.